I have broken this week's lectures into two smaller parts so that you can take a break from hearing my voice if you like. This is the first of the two, The Art of Good Acting Part 1. This slide here is a photograph of Benedict Cumberbatch playing Hamlet in the National Theatre's production of Hamlet in 2015. Until we know what a character wants, we don't know what the story is about. Until we know what the stakes are, we don't care. Author unknown. How I wish I could claim credit for this, but I can't. But at the basics, this is about what an actor kind of has to achieve in creating their character. So what actually is an actor's job? You could take a few minutes and maybe jot down some notes and think about it yourself. Like, how do you know when an actor is doing what they're supposed to be doing and doing it well? So I think at bottom, if we think about what the job of acting involves, is to be an actor means to portray a character in a play. So what is a character? When an actor is portraying a character in a piece of theater or film, it's really about creating the illusion of being a human being. Of course, actors already are human beings, so it's about creating the illusion of being a human being who is not yourself. Aristotle, who was a Greek philosopher I mentioned a time or two back, who had lots of things to say about art and theater, he said that you needed to have 6 elements in order to have theater, and one of them was character. So, as far as Aristotle saw things, a character is a person that is created to perform the action of a play. And most often, certainly in Aristotle's day, they were human or gods that resembled humans. But we've all been to theater where characters have been non-human things, right? Or we've seen TV programs probably when we're little where the characters have been animals or a supernatural creature, like a hobbit or a dragon, or a character could be a machine, and on and on and on and on. Lots of times we're going to see theater or movies where characters are based on historical, real personages. But even if a character is based on a real life person, they're still fictional in this piece of art that's being created. And what's kind of cool about character is that a character really has at least 2 parents. A character is both the creation of the playwright and the actor. So how does an actor do that? How does an actor create a character? Well, they're going to start with the text that the playwright has written, and they're going to work with the director and with their other actors on the stage, and they're going to dig deep into themselves and find where this human being is. So remember last week we were talking about a play text being kind of a blueprint of a building, whereas, attending a performance is sort of like walking through an actual building. The actor is going to use that play script like a blueprint on how to build their character, right? So an actor really needs to discover what makes their character tick, what is driving them to say and do the things that they're doing. And then the actor needs to communicate this to the audience. This is where we're different from in a novel where readers often get to read the character's mind and know their thoughts, or a narrator that's kind of omniscient, can explain the character's thoughts or the things that are happening that even the character themselves don't know, or they might have knowledge of the future that they'll explain to the reader, right? A play text is really more like a treasure map. There are lots of clues in a play text for the actor or the readers to discover about characters, but there's a whole lot kind of left purposefully vague, which means it's up to the actor to interpret or to make meaning from it. So much of the actor's process really has to start with reading a script, and they have to read it many, many, many times, and they have to read it very, very carefully using that lively brain kind of deep reading method that we talked. They probably have to take a lot of notes, but they really have to study that text to find out what's going on. And so some basic questions that we need to start with, kind of the first breadcrumbs on this treasure map, to torture a metaphor, right, is a play script is going to reveal what does a character say about themselves or other people. The play text is going to reveal what other characters say about your own character. And the text is going to show us what the character does. But here's the caveat, right? We need to ask ourselves, are they being truthful and or accurate when they say these things? And that's where some of this interpretation comes in. Another thing an actor needs to look for when they're reading the script is the given circumstances of their character. I like to borrow the phrase from a former Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld, who at the time was speaking about the situation in Iraq during the Gulf War. And he said, there are known knowns, and then there are unknown unknowns. I like to think of the given circumstances in a text as the known knowns about a character. So, what given circumstances are kind of clues left in the script by the playwright for the actor to discover. And these are facts about the character that are true and accurate, and they're really not open to multiple interpretation. What might those facts be? Well, we think of them as levels of characterization. So we're going to start pretty basic with biological traits, right? Most characters are going to be human. Not always. If you've been casting cats, your biological trait is that you are a cat, right? Or if you were casting Thomas the Tank Engine, your kind of biological trait is that you are a, a steam engine for a railway car. So biological traits, at the most basic, those are going to be what they are. Then you can go on to physical traits. The playwright might describe a character as tall or short or old or young or heavy or slender or male or female or in between or something else, or I don't know. And having a limp, having a sore throat, having blonde hair, all of those things are in the text potentially for the actor to discover. Then we have emotional and psychological traits, right? And those might not be come out and stated, but we can kind of use our context clues if you think back to being, a kid learning how to read, right? And we can be like, oh, yeah, this character really is in love with that other character, or this character clearly hates that character, or this character feels really, lonely in this play, or angry, or cheerful, or whatever. And then we have social traits, which are where does this character stand in the social hierarchy? Hamlet is a prince, Antigone is a princess, Creon is the king, Tiresias is a seer, and on and on and on and on. The text, lots of times, it's going to give us clues on where this character stands in relationship to other people in the world around them. And then the last one is ethical traits, which is what is this character's moral compass? Somebody like Antigone, she definitely feels like religious observance is important, family is important, doing the right thing, even if you're going to get in trouble, is important. That's her moral compass. Creon's moral compass is more like, I need people to respect authority. That's the most important thing. So all of these things are in the text, and sometimes they're going to be pretty clearly stated and out there. Some of them you're going to have to read between the lines and figure out, but they're there, and they're not really open to much interpretation. And so once an actor has figured out what a character's given circumstances are, their next step is to figure out what the character wants. The playwright David Mamet, he once said that a character never speaks except to try to get something that they want. You could probably say that at bottom that's pretty close to true for almost all human speech, right? We go all the way back to when we're babies. The first time we cry, it's because we want something, either we're cold or hungry or scared or need our diaper changed or something. And then we eventually acquire language and our ability to speak gets more sophisticated and complex. But most of the time when we're speaking, it's because we have a desire to communicate with another person. And so there's a want at the bottom of that. So when we're talking about what a character wants in a play, we call it their objective. Or you might hear somebody calling it motivation, right? There are lots of kind of theater jokes about an actor going, I don't know, man, what's my motivation for this scene? This is what we're talking about. What does my character want in a given moment? Now, the cool thing about theater is that virtually every time there's an objective, something that the character wants, there's usually going to be an accompanying obstacle, which is some sort of something that is preventing the character from achieving their objective and getting what they want. An obstacle can be another character. There's one brownie and two hungry people. Or it can be the physical environment. It's a dark and stormy night. I'm lost in the forest. Or an obstacle can be something within the own character. I want to avenge the murder of my father by his brother, but I'm not sure that murder is ever just. So I need to wrestle with this a while and figure out when and how and if I can carry this out. All right, so we've got this tug of war between objective and obstacle. Then we need to sort of engage tactics, which are the how the character is going to go about achieving their objective, overcoming that obstacle and getting what they want. Tactics are actions. They're things the character does or says or how they behave in order to get to their objective. And sometimes these are going to be laid out in the script, and sometimes they're going to be things the actor has to figure out for themselves. But actors are going to use those given circumstances and the other character analysis that they're doing to help choose actions that can kind of like fill in those blanks between what is written into the script and what needs to be invented or extrapolated. And because the actor has done all this research on how their character thinks and feels and behaves and what makes them tick, they're going to choose actions that are most appropriate for their character. So at any given moment in a play, these three questions are kind of going to go through the actor's mind. What is my objective? What do I want? What is my obstacle? What's keeping me from getting it? And what are my tactics? How can I go about getting it? Now, remember, these questions are about what the character wants, not the actor. We assume what the actor wants is to be awesome at their job, to receive thunderous applause and a big fat paycheck, and maybe the adoration of fans, right? Those are all off to the side. We're thinking, what does Hamlet want? What does Antigone want? What does Tilly want when we're thinking about these questions? And it's the intersection of these three concepts, objective, obstacle, and tactics, that create dramatic tension or conflict. Because guess what? Most of the time, there's another character on stage or about to be on stage or just was on stage who also has an objective and an obstacle and tactics. And usually they are pitted against your character. And so it's that pitting together of competing objectives and obstacles, which we saw so clearly in Antigone between Creon and Antigone, that we've got this dramatic tension. Only one of them can be right. Only one of them can win. Who's it going to be? And another thing an actor is going to be thinking about when they're reading the script is this concept called subtext, literally underneath the words, right? And subtext is what a character is thinking while they're speaking their lines or while they're silent on stage. And this is important because subtext communicates emotion. When an actor has given a thought to what their character is thinking and feeling and maybe plotting when they're speaking words on stage, this is how the actor can create that sense of spontaneity and emotional authenticity that makes it appear that the character is having an original thought that just occurred to them in the moment. And it is important to remember that the text is the text, but the subtext is an addition to that, right? Because like, how many times can you say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Right? That's a really simple line of text. But depending on what you're thinking and feeling when you say that, you could say that three-word phrase, 1,000 different ways and mean it differently every time. Are you startled? Are you angry? Are you annoyed? Are you tongue-tied? Are you happy? All of that, right? Who does this person mean to you that you're saying hello to? All of that is your subtext, which is going to give that emotional color to that phrase. So let's walk these concepts through with a story that I'm hoping is familiar to everybody in class. Let's look at Disney's Cinderella. What are Cinderella's given circumstances? Well, she's poor, she's orphaned, she's kept as a servant, and she's treated very meanly by her stepmother and stepsisters, but she's kind and she's caring and she's made friends with animals. And what is Cinderella's big objective for most of this movie? Well, she wants to go to the ball. It's a fairly simple objective, right? Cinderella wants to go to the ball. But what's her obstacle? Kind of two, right? I said these are going to be embedded in another person a lot of times. So Cinderella's stepmother doesn't want her to go to the ball. And another problem that Cinderella has is that she doesn't have a suitable dress to wear. So tactics. What does Cinderella do to overcome this? Well, she does all of the crazy amount of chores that her stepmother tells her she has to complete. And then she finds an old dress of her mom's to wear. And Cinderella, because she's so kind, her animal friends decide to help her get the dress all fancy. And then when Her stepmother and stepsisters destroy the dress and all seems lost. Cinderella gets a visit from her fairy godmother and a magic dress. Objective achieved. So when we add this grouping of objective plus an obstacle plus a set of tactics, we get a unit of action in a play, and we call this unit a beat. Actors are going to find many beats throughout the play. These are like little goals for their character to achieve, and they're all in service of an ultimate goal. So I kind of think about this as like leveling up in a video game. Because although a character might have several objectives along the way, they have something that's called the super objective, which is their big want. This is the thing that drives the character through the entire play. It's something that the character wants desperately. Every objective and obstacle beat is in service to achieving this big want, this super objective. And lots of times we talk about this in terms of stakes. How high are the stakes? And when we're talking about stakes, we mean how much does it matter to achieve that big want or not achieving it, right? Is it literally life and death? Is it just going to feel like life and death? Or is it just sort of meh? Thinking again about Cinderella, right? Her super objective is to live happily ever after with someone who loves her. Right? Going to the ball only gets her halfway there. It's once she gets to the ball that she finds the prince and falls in love with him. And then the rest of the movie is all about her trying to get back with him. That's why the movie doesn't end when she arrives at the ball. So now I have taken you through how an actor might read a script to figure out what makes their character tick and figure out what their character wants, and starting to devise some ideas on what actions their character might take on stage to get around those obstacles and get what they want.